All right.
Great, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Yeah. Nanny saved me some.
That's why you're here.
And I didn't set the world on fire on speed. But it was Sunday that we left Valley Lake. So it wasn't Sunday.
Please call the meeting to order. And if I could have a motion to move to executive session for the purposes of discussing the employment history of particular person.
So moved.
All those in favor?
That's a good idea. Right. Good.
It's really nice.
Not as young as I once was.
Look at me snacks.
What's next?
Me.
There you go.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I could please at this time have a motion to approve the minutes of our regular meeting, March 8th.
So moved. Second.
Questions or comments regarding the minutes? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? We have no updates to this evening's agenda, and I have no correspondence to communicate to the board. Superintendent?
I will jump on my typical role, and I'll share a couple things. One is, and I know Mr. Ebner is going to speak to it later, so I won't steal his thunder, but the last time we were together, we talked about our planning for the staff development day that was going to be taking place on the 21st, yesterday. What a great day. It was a lot of fun, a lot of camaraderie. Jeff, I know, is going to share with you some of the comments that we received from staff. But really was a wonderful day, and and I know that that you supported that concept, and I want to thank you for that. I think sometimes even I underestimate the power of just being together, and I got an opportunity to see it yesterday and even take part. I am proud though, I played ping pong for about 45 minutes, table tennis, I told it's called now, and I didn't pull anything. So I'm feeling pretty, I got awfully sweaty, I'm not gonna lie to you, but I didn't pull it. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to share with you is that we had the opportunity today to begin our design of our capital project that we passed earlier this school year. We met this morning, and some of the folks in the audience were in the conference room with us. We had 3 representatives from Hunt. We talked to our elementary staff today, this morning, and then in the afternoon, we met at H-Tech with our high school folks. And really, the first phase of this design planning is just listening to people, gathering their thoughts about the various spaces that we're going to be in as part of the capital project. That will lead to another meeting after our April break, where they'll come back to us with some design concepts based upon what they heard. And then they'll meet again with us prior to us going away, or some folks going away in June, to really fine tune some of those plans so that we can get it to state ed by Christmas time, so we can continue to hit our windows. So I want to thank the people that were involved today, and as I mentioned, tomorrow we'll sit with more. They came prepared, they had filled out some questionnaires ahead of time to give the architects some feedback. But really were thoughtful, and quite honestly, didn't think we'd spend as much time talking about bathrooms as we did today. But we learned a lot about what it was we liked, things that we already had, some things that we desired. And that was true at the high school as well. We had a longer conversation about some of those aspects, because most of the work we've been talking about will be at the intermediate, junior high, but still a lot of great work that'll be done here as well as the high school. So it was fun, a lot of fun, planning for the future. And again, just wanted to bring you up to speed on that plan.
I think this evening we're going to start with an elementary highlight at our board meeting.
Yes, Mr. Pasquarella is going to be introducing his group.
Hello? All right, we're gonna use this, because I know that it's there too, so that we have a little bit more volume. But I'm gonna ask you to take 10 seconds, to think to yourself, what does blue pride mean to you? Ready, Ashley?
Blue pride. We use this term all of the time in our schools. It is a phrase that transcends our community. Blue pride means to give it 100% all of the time. It means picking up our neighbors in times of need. It means putting our children in a position to thrive with their education. And here at Homer Elementary School, Blue Pride means so much more.
My girls were very nervous about coming to school, especially since during COVID they were home learners and they were so nervous. But the way that their teacher connected with them, even coming to school, they just fell in love with it again.
It was late summer of 2020, so the year of the pandemic, and when I called the school, she just immediately greeted me. I explained our situation to her, that we had fled the city due to COVID, and I really just broke down on the phone. We were here with no support network. We came here from Brooklyn with nobody, from the biggest school district in the country to tiny Homer, and they didn't know us from anybody. I didn't have anybody to support us, to say, hey, we're gonna get you through this, but that's what the school became to us. They became our support network.
It's trying to get the kids engaged outside of school, do different activities, give them the opportunities to, have environmental options that maybe they don't have that ability to do, or go different places. And very rarely have I ever seen it where, oh, it's gonna cost you this much money. It's always like, nope, we've got it, we're covered. The PTO is a huge part in trying to help give back. And it's never a matter of, well, how much can we get? It's more, how much can we give? And I love that. I love that part.
As a parent, my biggest concern is, are they safe and are they loved? Bottom line. And I know they're safe. I know that the district takes very good care of them. All of the decisions they've seemed to make are child-directed, and that means a lot. You want your kids to love their teacher, and it's very clear that the teachers love them back.
When she had those meltdowns, whether it was hiding under a desk, hiding under a chair, it wasn't just, oh, she's being bad, let's punish her. It was, let's address why this is happening. And I give all of that to Mr. Pasquarello, because as soon as I went to him with these issues and said I need help with my kid, he said, we're gonna help you, you're not alone. So we started having these monthly meetings for her, which continued. Even in the summer, he was there for us. I wanna raise a good human. I wanna raise a functional human, somebody who is good in society, who knows how to treat others, who knows how to act around others, who can get by, and I can't do that without them.
What the class does, what the elementary school does as a whole, whether it's like a walk-a-thon and they raise money to give back to the community, teaching people the value of what that means so that we raise character, I think is a big part of it, constantly building character in these young kids and what they can do and what they can become, and letting them know it can be anything. And us as a community is always going to be there to support you, and we'll be proud of any chance you take, any opportunity you get, just go for it. Like, we're here to support you, go get them. Blue Pride.
Okay, I'll have you return to your seats because we're going to follow up with you why this came about. So I hope you took some time to think about, prior to that video, about what Blue Pride means to you. We don't take enough time always to talk about what it means to us. So I think it's important that you actually, as a board, have some opportunity to think about that and what that means to you personally. By the way, volunteering is pride in itself because you have pride in our community, therefore there should be Blue Pride. That being said, though, this presentation, if you think back for those board members that were with us last year, we did a video for you as well, because I like videos, by the way. I missed my career in going into this field, by the way. I wanted to be a broadcaster like Mr. Turkey, but that path didn't come that way, right? We went to a different path. But that being said, though, what I think is important to understand, last year's video, we brought to you in video the idea of we're still teaching through a pandemic, and education's happening. So we're on a different level this year. This year, we started to look at PLCs, professional learning communities. And this summer, our guiding coalition with over 18 members spent a great deal of time, 3 days, thinking about what professional learning communities mean. And there's 4 important questions in professional learning communities that I think is important for you all to understand. So I'm going to get to that, and then I'll pass the mic over to my 3 others that are standing there to the side. But before I get to PLCs and explain that to you, there was a slide there that talked about pride. And that's something that our district has always stood on. The P is for passion of learning, the R is for respect of others, the I is for integrity, the D is for devotion and civility, and the E is for excellence in instruction. All of those things, hopefully, you've either heard or saw through those videos. With that being said, I want you to understand the PLC work. The PLC work is 4 critical questions. What is it we want our students to know and be able to do? 2, how will we know if each student has learned? 3, how will we respond when students do not learn? And 4, which is really the most pivotal one out of all, how will we extend the learning for those students who have demonstrated proficiency? That's the work that we're currently doing. That's the work they're doing. That's why I wanted to point out to you that there's a lot of work going on inside our buildings that you don't see day to day. With that being said, my part of this presentation was making sure that we honor the 3 people that actually stepped forward. Because when we talk about committees, we ask people to volunteer. So I asked for a volunteer group for the Board of Education to present. These 3 minds came together and said, we want to talk about this with pride and what that means to us. And they'll explain to you a little bit more. The last piece that I have for you is that we want to either build upon or extend traditions. Extending traditions is a graduation walk. Having kids come to our building and do a graduation walk before they graduate. The other one that we're going to start this spring is take a picture of a kindergarten student, and it's going to say what I want to be. And then when they graduate, Doug, so you've got to make sure that you're still around. If not, we'll pass it on to the next person. Will be a stack of pictures. Will be a stack of pictures from those kindergarten students, already alphabetized, saying what they want to be. So when they go to graduation, they're getting that picture right back. So that's a tradition that we want to keep inside our family. With that being said, though, the last thing that we also started is when we look at passion, respect, integrity, devotion, and excellence, we highlighted MVP every day, every Wednesday. So every Wednesday, besides giving out popcorn, we highlight an MVP in our building. We recognize them, we announce them, we share and celebrate their successes inside our building. The cool part was this last week, I'll go back, it was this last week, right before I got myself sick. I had a student that nominated the entire staff. So we read what he had for the staff to the staff on Wednesday. And it was the first celebration where a kid was finally giving back towards the staff about how much they appreciate the work that they do for them. The other one that we do is Top Colonel. So if you're in our building, you have the opportunity to celebrate someone's successes by giving them a popcorn and telling them how much you appreciate that person. So there's those little pieces in our culture that we're really trying to build that community, that blue pride, that passion. So I'm going to pass it on to Ashley, because Ashley's got a next piece to that blue pride.
Thank you. So we talk a lot about how proud of the kids we are, right? We're proud of the work that we're doing as adults. We're proud of the work that the kids are doing, and we're really trying to teach them the importance of that intrinsic motivation, right? In our building, a lot of kids are extrinsically motivated. But so a bunch of us were kind of sitting and talking, and we used to have, leader of the month, and there's this and that, and just kind of recognizing great things that kids do, right? And so we've spent a lot of time recognizing what adults are doing really well. So Karen Keefe and I sat down together, and we put our heads together just to try to figure out how we can honor the little things that kids are doing, right? In this building, we're trying to teach kids learning behaviors, and we're trying to help them learn how to avoid situations that might distract them from what's most important, right? So we came up with this Helping Hands initiative, and that's all the pictures that you saw with all those blue hands, right? And being a helping hand can look many different things, right? So at the beginning, we sat down and we wrote every single child's name, not because everybody deserves a participation award, but the truth is that every single child does something that's helpful frequently. And we wanted to make sure that we were I was willing mostly because for us it's important to be honoring and recognizing what little kids are doing and how they're contributing to a culture change, right? So Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, they're invited down to the cafeteria at 2:35, and they get their picture taken. Mrs. Keith reads them the recognition form, right? And so really trying to change their extrinsic motivations to intrinsic and really find ways to just be helpful, right? It's not just pushing a chair in, but when a teacher's giving directions, you're sitting in, you're listening. That's very helpful because that impacts the message that other kiddos receive, right? So it's been pretty powerful, and if you have a chance before you leave, please look in the lobby and look at all the hands. So each kid gets to decorate a hand before they leave the cafeteria, and it's very unique to them. They don't put their names on it, but without question, those kids who drew on their hand, they know where their hand is hanging up in the lobby, and it's just really, really powerful for the kids and for the adults, because we're all helping each other and we're really building each other up, and it's having a really positive impact, and kids are so excited. One of my friends, she'll run down the hallway yelling, "I'm a helping hand," right? She's so proud of being helpful, and they're starting to recognize it in each other, and it's extremely powerful, and hopefully it's having the impact that we desired it to have.
So actually, one of the other components of that that's really important is your faculty and staff buy-in.
Yeah.
Right? You shifted some mindset around participation award. So this is something that's meaningful and it changes culture, right?
Yeah.
So you've got people recognizing and noticing, because a lot of times adults will have some difficulty with, why am I going to recognize something that they're supposed to be doing
Right.
anyway? So that's huge, and to have that level of buy-in. And it just took for people to see how appreciative the kids were for being recognized. That,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I want to write this, and make sure Joey knows that that's appreciated and valued. But
Yeah.
it's not just the children that you impacted,
Yeah.
that programming
And
and
you're right.
that mindset impacted the adults that are working with kids too. So thank you, and thank you for thinking like that.
If you don't mind, just to play off of that, two things. A lot of kids who have some significant behavior concerns, there are things that they're doing well, and it's starting to motivate them in ways, and that was really our goal there, right? A lot of kids always do things, many kids who don't have behavior issues. There are tons of things they do helpful, but it's the kids who don't feel. I had one kid the other day, I said, "You are a good boy," and he started bawling, and he said, "My grandma doesn't think I'm a good boy." And having those conversations is really impacting children. And just to also say, initially we started out Tuesday, Thursday, and we had to add Wednesday because there were just too many to do in one day, and it lost the value when you're trying to get 30 kids in and out, get their pictures taken. We needed to add a day so we could have these conversations with kids. So it's really powerful.
And I've been affiliated with the district for a long time, so there's a pretty big span in the ages of my children. And I can tell you, when the older boy went through, his experience was those merit recognitions were for naughty kids. So when other children were recognized, they didn't have that same pride in it because it had been stigmatized to mean something else. This is brilliant. It's beautiful. Thank you.
And I was going to say, Ashley, as well, these pictures are being posted on social media. So
Oh, yeah.
there's a nice connection to home because these families that don't get to hear much about their kiddos in school, they can see and they're proud and they're seeing them. So even the families are, it's a whole community.
Yeah, we wanted to get parents to kind of be able to see this as well. So we take the picture in here, jump on Parent Square, congratulations are in order, your child was recognized as a helping hand. Please find the nomination form in your child's backpack tonight. And that's all it is. So it sparks conversation at home, and I've shared some responses with some people. The responses from parents is powerful, especially when their child does have behavior concerns. And they're really feeling, they are seeing things that my child is doing well. So it's really exciting. It is.
We, at the beginning of the year, our scheduling committee got together and created a 70-minute uninterrupted time for every grade level to get together. And that has really blossomed over this year for a lot of different reasons. So we get together once at the 4-day cycle, so that could turn into twice a week. We have a lot of discussions there, but mostly they are centered around the needs of our kids. How we best support them. It ranges from data, how we do our interventions through each of the tiers, the curriculum, how it's going, how it's not going, the changes that we want to see in it, our social emotional needs for the kids, support services, scheduling, and I have to give it to Chrissy. She does a great job with the celebrations. She makes it, make sure that we're talking about all the great things that are happening in our classrooms. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I feel like I've grown as a teacher. 9 years here. I was in first grade for half of that, and now I'm in second grade. And just sitting and listening to the people around me, and the ideas that they try in their classroom, or the strategies that they use to teach something, or the communication that they have with their kids, it sparks something in me going, why didn't I think of that? I gotta try that. And me just kind of going out on a limb in my own classroom going, oh my gosh, that worked. And I keep going. Of course, it doesn't work with every kid, but it does open up that door to keep going and keep trying and keep the lines of communication open with the people on your team. And it opens the door to have communication with people that are not on your team. And there goes that communication within the building. Ever since doing this, I think I've been in Jen's room more than she wants me to be. But I think that it's helpful. We're bouncing ideas off of each other, and I think that it all stems from this collaboration time. And it's centered around the kids, but it's also centered around us and how do we become better professionals.
And I missed it, is it meet by grade level?
Yes.
The other thing I can share, that's also a cultural change, right? That we're comfortable opening our doors or and sharing those ideas. We had some tendency a bazillion years ago that people stayed in their own zone, and those best practices or those best experiences weren't shared. So I'm happy to hear that. It sounds like an inviting place to come work, right? I'm not to feel alone.
Yeah, if I could steal Planet Fitness's, lingo, it's judgment free, really. That's what it's turned into. People are open and honest about this did not work for me, this did not go so well for me, but you've got somebody right there patting you on the back going, okay, try this. And you find that you're picking up the pieces for somebody else, and you don't realize it until after the meeting's over and someone goes, thank you.
Well, so we always had this concept about go see, go watch it. And really, what your daily schedule looked like didn't offer a lot of opportunity for that, or to even know what it is I want to go see.
Yeah.
So right now, having those conversations and sharing those practices, hey, can I come watch that? Right? I think that's fantastic. I'm really happy to hear that.
In the coming months, you guys will see a presentation about learning blocks that have taken place at the elementary school, and there's been 4 rounds done at the intermediate school. And teachers getting into other people's classrooms is a very powerful experience. It is happening. It's happening often.
So through that collaboration time that we have every week or twice a week, we were able to take that and put a win time into our schedule this year. So every day, each grade level gets a 40-minute block of time to target kiddo skills where they're at. And through this time, we were able to work with literacy specialists, math specialists to build the lesson that each student needs. And speaking for my grade level, my team, I have gotten to know them more than I ever have before. And we really focus on all means all, and not just for students, but for teachers as well. So whether we're meeting at that time, on our own time, but we really are putting the kids' needs first and targeting what they need. So the questions that Doug mentioned earlier with the PLC is we're living it. We are meeting students' needs, whether they need a reteach or enrichment. So we're really coming together, and we've created a family this year, and it just feels different, and it feels good, and the culture is amazing.
What a great foundation for kids too, right? I mean, that's they belong and they're valued right at the beginning.
So 2 things that are really happening that are under this all is the idea that our language changes. So it's no longer talking about what's not going well, it's what's going well, and that springboards us to what we need to continue to do to improve upon that, as opposed to sitting and wallowing on, this isn't well, this isn't, and so moving from that. The other thing to think about, my aha here, my mom used to always say to me, things happen for reasons. And my connection to this video, they're speaking, is to the fact of we have 18 new staff members in our building. Do they understand what Blue Pride means to us? So that video is just a simple tie to show us and for us to use for families, for our staff, about defining Blue Pride, but then building from that and continuing to elevate what Blue Pride means to us all. Because it's not just, you know, as teams, I used to be a head coach, right? FS3, 1, 2, 3, Blue Pride, right? And we said it, but what does that mean? Define it. And it's not just a sports thing, it's a cultural thing, meaning in our community, in our building, on how we live that and profess that to our students and to ourselves and our commitments to each other. I'm going to use it because it's a phrase I use, so I'd be remiss if I did not say thank you to Ashley Gilbert, by the way, she's second grade now, special education and doing her internship. Carissa Rockwell, second grade general ed teacher, but also the chair of the grade level. Jen Block, okay, first grade, general ed teacher. And Chrissy is always somewhere to be in the background as a coach, and as coaches do. These three really sat instrumentally thinking about what this could look like and how we could present it to you. But the fact too, you know, Chrissy definitely is doing great work, heavy lifting, in getting them to actually break down that guard and be free to talk and communicate. Statements that have been made would be respectfully bold, right? Let's be respectfully bold with each other because our kids are owed that. And that's part of Blue Pride, right? If you want to be the best, you got to challenge each other to be the best. So, good? All right. Follow-up questions, because I know sometimes you may have some.
Dr. Ali, is Blue Pride is having so much passion about what you're doing, that that's what you want to do on a Tuesday night, is roll out and talk other adults about what you're doing. That's Blue Pride, right? You're so proud of what you're doing that you need people to know you're going to give up your time to come do that. So thank you for bringing that to us.
Thank you. And we had, Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had a lot more parents that gave us either email write-ups. So our next video, which we're working on with Kevin, is just to share a press release of what Blue Pride means to some of our families. And, you know, voiceover by Kevin or whatever that may be. But to hear what because we extended that offer. If you didn't see it from parents, we asked parents, tell us what Blue Pride means to you. And that's what happened. Those were the ones that said, yeah, I'll jump to your video. And when he came, they got him. But I know there's others. So our intention is, that's not a one and done. There's a bigger one coming to share what our families feel about this community. So thank you.
Thank you.
And that moves us to our second presentation of the evening, which is a budget presentation.
Yes, and seems like I have to say it won't be nearly as, you know, and it won't be nearly as fabulous as what we just heard, but somewhat obviously important as we move forward. One of the things I did want to touch on before I jump into this is that, you know, if you remember back a couple of years ago, we had Elliot Marenbloom come into our district and spend a week with us and take a look at our building schedule and talk about collaborative planning time and new master schedules. Collaborative planning time was one of those things that came out loud and clear, but collaborative planning time doesn't work unless you're purposeful about how you use it. And clearly, what you're hearing tonight at the elementary school, they're using it very purposefully and having great outcomes because of that. So thank you for your work. We really appreciate it. Mike apologizes. He is a little under the weather tonight, so I apologize. You'll have to go through this with me. As you know, we are
experiencing technical.
Am I too far away?
Not to accent, don't think I heard it.
He's just gonna use it here.
You're gonna do it for me? Well, I
Just
got
do
it.
it a little
I
heavy.
got it, right?
Yeah.
There it is, look at that. Only took two of them. Only took two. So as you know, we're marching toward our, the development of our budget and our vote later this spring. I want to spend time talking to you tonight. We, in prior presentations, have talked about our federal stimulus funds. I want to give you a little more feedback on how it is that we're utilizing those. We had our budget and finance meeting where we talked about the importance of making sure that we're very transparent about this. These are the federal stimulus monies that we have, some of which to spend through 2023 and the remainder to spend through 2024. If you add all of those numbers in the pie chart together, it's $6,672,459. The big chunks, $2.281 million capital, and if you remember, with our recently approved capital project, we allotted that amount of money to be included in that. The next 2.836 are professional salaries, and I'll get into how those are broken down both within and outside of our general fund budget in some later slides. $1.198 million used for technology, $168,065 for purchase services, and then just under $189,000 spent on our personal protective equipment. The next slide, these are how we are spending the money. This slide represents how it operates outside of the general fund budget. I'll say those one-time costs as opposed to some of our ongoing planning. So the $2.281,534, that is that capital, and we're using the entire capital amount, and that again was part of our capital project that we were approved in the fall. The next is 1.41812. That's the portion of the professional salaries. And again, this is outside the general fund budget. These salaries are for our extended day programs, for our summer enrichment programs. I'll call those our one-off costs. All of these monies to be spent over the 3-year grant period. The last is the technology portion of the $1.1 million. We're using $798,175 to be used outside of the general fund budget. Those are Promethean boards, access points in the buildings for our wireless technology, desktop computers, and again, that $798,000 spread out over the 3-year grant period.
Is some of that professional salary where we grew our pre-K services?
That's coming in the next, that's within.
No, we added some specialized services.
No, that's, yep,
Okay.
yep. No, it's right here. And this is part, these funds are funds that we are really going to have to be careful with because we're going to have to continue how to pay for those once the funding stops. So again, the professional salaries make up the largest part, 1.41812. That is where we have those positions that we've created that are going to remain with us. Family and community liaison. We budgeted for 4, we've only hired 1 up to this point. Our ENL teachers, and then our pre-K supplemental services. Those are the ones that will stay in the budget. That's the challenge. How do we make sure that we've built in a plan so that we can continue those once the funding runs out? The next, the $400,000 piece of the pie, that's technology. And again, that's within the general fund budget. Those are Chromebooks, some Promethean boards spread out over the 3 years. The $188,661, that's our PPE, and then the purchase services, the SEL curriculum, the SEL screeners, those kinds of things. So, to Sonia's point, how do we implement the funding so we don't hit that fiscal cliff? There's a number of different ways that we're planning to do that. One, and we've mentioned it in previous presentations, we expect the increase in foundation aid to be about $600,000 next year as they fully fund the foundation aid formula. So we're counting on that, but in looking at what the proposals are currently in the legislature, it looks like that's going to continue. So that's a fair bet. We do have an expectation that our pre-K programs will be fully funded. Right now, 3 of the 4 are fully funded, and we're hopeful and we expect that 4th one to be fully funded moving forward. We always count on staff retirements. This year, we currently have 6, and those are in your personnel portions of the packet for tonight. Those pre-K supplemental services that we were referring to in the elementary school here, we're able to charge counties for the services that we're providing. That'll help offset the cost of those salaries moving forward. As we have always, we have our reserve fund plan and the use of those reserves. We'll continue to do that. We adjust it from year to year depending on the need. We could always increase it. You don't want to increase it too much. And so our plan would be to not make that proposal to you or plan appropriately so we don't have to do that too much. And then again, we could front load our technology, buy it essentially earlier so that moving forward, we're well positioned. Questions so far?
On the technology,
Yep.
sometimes the trick is how quickly it's antiquated. So is there kind of like a phase in? Yes?
Yes.
No, this is something that we've worked really hard to get Tom mentioned Chromebooks and computers, desktop computers, but those weren't the majority of what we're looking at, because those are the quicker churn ones. The Promethean boards have an expected life of 10 years. The access points, we made sure that was a large purchase to upgrade the whole system. Those I expect to last 7 to 12 years. So the hope would be to get ahead of those. And since we're kind of preloading, as it says on the last bullet, we'll be able to kind of back off a little bit, continue to use our BOCES funds so that we can continue to get those 8 checks moving forward so that it continues to roll.
I imagine on the Promethean boards, this kind of probably helped in the process because you have some.
That's right.
And so maybe
Yeah.
it cycles so you don't hit, we have 40 new Promethean boards that we have to replace 3 years from now. You have
That's
already
right.
cycled because we already had some.
And the reality is some realistically might make it 7 years in their 10-year life, and we'll start identifying the ones that are starting to get long in the tooth and address those. And some of them we might have to try to eke out for 12 years, but that's kind of gonna be the long-term plan.
When will you officially know about the expected increase in the foundation aid and also about the, with the fully funding of pre-K? When does that typically, only officially?
Well, we hope to know within a week that when the legislature comes together and finalizes their budget. We would expect that it would be fairly quick. They'd like to hit the April 1st deadline, but it shouldn't be too awful long. And our plan after that, once we know what our funding levels will look like, we'll get back together with the Budget and Finance Committee again, because we have to approve our budget by the 25th of April. We'd like to do it, we could hit the date. Yes, oh yeah, we'll have all that information. So one of the challenges, and Josh was alluding to how we have funded our technology quite well over the last dozen or so years. It's great, and it's great that we're in a good financial position, but one of the challenges was much of our funding from the federal sources came to us after we had approved our budget for last year. And so what that means is there was an influx of that $6.6 million, great problem to have, but we're only allowed to keep so much from one year to the next. And so one of the things that we felt it was important for us to talk to you about tonight is what do we do if we end at the end of the year with more than 4% fund balance? The way that 4% fund balance is calculated, it's 4% times the proposed budget for next year, so 22-23. We're forecasting that the budget will remain static, so if you do our math, our fund balance, what we're allowed to carry over to next year is $1.77 million. Now, one of the things that's being discussed in the legislature right now, they're proposing, because of this influx of federal monies, they're talking about allowing schools to take from 4% up to 8%. I don't know if that'll go through. We'll find out soon enough. Even if that happens, we still may have more money than we're allowed to have. So if it does go up to 8%, that 1.7 becomes 3.5. But again, because we are in such a good financial position, because we've had a sound financial plan for years, we're in a position that we don't often find ourselves in. So what is it that we do if we find that we come back to you and we say we're X amount of dollars above that 4% fund balance, or above the 8% if they raise it to that? So long discussion in our budget and finance committee meeting. Again, we have had a sound financial plan for years. What we would recommend, if we find ourselves at the end of year above, whether it's 4 or 8%, is that we utilize that additional monies to fund a couple of reserves that we have. First, our capital reserve. We're currently funded at 0. We spent out the remainder, the little over $100,000 in this last project that we were just had approved. We would have to do that by establishing a resolution at the budget vote. We can fund it up to $10 million. That's the cap. So that would be the first place that we would recommend if we're over and above the fund balance allowance. The second would be to fund our TRS employee retirement reserve that was created in 2021, currently funded $27,309. That money is used to offset costs associated with the teacher's retirement fund. And we put down at the bottom of the slide what our annual cost is. So again, a lot of room there to fund that, and it would be put to good use moving forward. Questions about that? The last thing I wanted to show you, and again, this is not new necessarily, but we wanted to give you a feel for where we are with our school bus leasing. As you know, we have a 5-year replacement plan here in the district that requires us each year to lease 7 buses. The yellow, the cost, the reason that those costs were lower than you would see as an example in 2022, $152,250 for those 7 buses. The reason that those numbers are in yellow is that prior to 2019, we were able to trade in our buses to offset those leasing costs, and that ability for us obviously has gone away. One of the things that I did say to Mike, he told me, he was fairly nonchalant about it, but I said, this is a big deal, we should put it on the slide, is that because of Mike's planning, because of Jen Fox's planning, and because of the relationship that we forged with Matthews Buses over the years, we had our ducks in a row as we do each year to get our buses purchased, even though we haven't, or not purchased, but leased, even though we haven't had it approved yet. Since we locked in, or since we gave our intention to lease these buses, the cost per bus has gone up $10,000. So for us, that would be an additional $70,000 that we would be required to allocate for that. And so again, because of our sound planning, in this case, when it comes to bus leasing, it benefits our community. Some budget considerations. Again, these are things that are continuing to be top of mind as we go through. I had mentioned ad nauseum the reliance on the federal stimulus monies to fill in gaps, and being aware that when we create new positions that we want to continue, we're going to have to figure out a way to do that. We have to keep in mind that each year there are contractual increases and increases to employee benefits. I've never been part of a school district where they've gone down over from one year to the next, and so we don't anticipate that to happen. One of the things that's being talked about now is that any student that is placed out of district in the executive's budget proposal, they were going to push those costs back to the school, and they would not be aidable. Both the Senate and Assembly have come out and said they oppose that. My guess is it will not be in the finalized budget, but again, that could be a significant cost if it is, so we have to keep that in mind. And the good news down at the bottom of this slide, our enrollment projections are showing us that we're a popular place to be, and folks want to come into Homer. One of the things that I didn't mention when I talked about the pre-K funding before, I said last time, I think, that we are having conversations about staffing for next year. And one of the things that we'll continue to look at and consider is, are we, or do we need to add a 5th section of pre-K? Because over the last 2 years, we've had 22 and 24 students above what we could handle of 72 students originally. And some of them got in as the school year went on, but wouldn't it be nice if we could, accommodate all of those folks that want to come to us in the pre-K program? Other budget considerations, We have talked about our energy performance project and those guaranteed savings of about $247,000 that are part of that project, so we'll keep that in mind moving forward. I had already mentioned the reduction in staff salaries. We won't know, obviously, what those really are until we replace the people that are leaving us. And again, in the legislature right now, these are some of the things that are being considered. I mentioned the increasing of the fund balance from 4 to 8%. Again, continuing the full phase-in of foundation aid, again for us in Homer, there will be an additional $600,000 next year. I mentioned the shift of residential placement costs to school districts. Again, don't think that's gonna happen. What I am hopeful it happens though, is that they allow the capital outlay limit. Those are those projects that we do here locally each year. And again, Homer's been very proactive in doing one of those each year. They're talking about raising that limit from $100,000 to $250,000, would allow you to do more projects locally and get them done much more quickly than maybe we have been able to in the past. Moving forward, we were waiting on the legislative budget, and then we're going to continue to look at our staffing levels. We haven't met yet with junior high or high school folks. We'll be doing that here in the next few days. And then down at the bottom of the slide, the future dates. I had mentioned that we have to approve our budget by the 22nd, but we have a board meeting scheduled for the 18th. We're hopeful that we can be in a position where we could have provided you all the information you need to make a decision on our budget at that meeting and not have to have a separate meeting to do that. Questions?
So are all the buses leased now?
Yes. Yeah. It's been very effective for us, in just savings of, maintenance costs and all those kinds of things, parts and all that, part of our leasing agreement, so.
It's a really good deal, but every year, Mr. Kirk, Mr. Falls, and the budget committee can do the math, just to make sure that leasing is still the best way to go. And as long as interest rates stay where they've been, it comes out way ahead. So
Yeah.
we make sure to keep an eye on it, just in case.
Yeah, and obviously it guarantees us the safest fleet we can have, which obviously is the goal, right? Put our kids in the best positions, to be healthy and happy here, so.
Probably what I would regret saying out loud. Is there a mechanism for, if you're over that 4%, that can be returned back?
There is a mechanism. It wouldn't be what we would recommend that we do, just because one of the things that we have tried not to create over time is a yo-yo effect with what we go out to our public and ask them for. As long as we're using it, I think our job is to be stewards of our community's, resources, right? Doing what we had recommended, the capital reserve and then the TRS reserve. It keeps that money, it helps us to use it in a logical, thoughtful way, and it also doesn't potentially create that peak and valley that we.
Yeah, I know in the past we really had good support for the capital reserve.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we have that same level of appreciation or support as it relates to a TRS. And I thought that with our TRS, we had some exposure that our accountants had talked about doing more of a spend down at those. And I think it wasn't TRS, it was the employee benefit.
Right.
We had too much there and we.
Right, no,
were advised to spend down on that.
Yeah, well, and as I mentioned here, the capital reserve limit is $10 million. We won't have $10 million, and so the TRS reserve is a secondary approach if we didn't want to put it all in the capital reserve. So we'll talk more about that, and obviously we'll need to have a resolution to do those things. But certainly, we made a case in the past, as you mentioned, to fund the capital reserve for future projects.
And the dollar amounts, that were discussed in the slides, those were really just what the maximums are. It's not really what, our accountants have really advised us.
No.
As of yet.
Right. Correct.
Questions.
Sure.
You said reduction in OCF or
Right, so some of the students that are now going to out-of-district placements are currently in BOCES programs, of which we receive aid back on a portion of those costs. So obviously, our BOCES aid would go down if the student's not there. It would be transferred, our costs would be transferred over to an out-of-district placement. So one would give when the other, one would go down as the other increases, if that makes sense. Yeah.
And then the next question I had was in regard to staffing
Mhm.
due to enrollment projections. And I recall having a conversation about this towards the beginning of the school year. I wanted to try, if is it possible to try to avoid the discussion we had at the beginning of the school year as far as when it came to bringing on more staff, and we have, if we're projecting for it, if we're putting it in the budget.
Our goal is to not have to make that decision in the summertime, certainly not late summertime. That's why we're having the conversations now. We would like to make a recommendation, get into the pool sooner than maybe we have in the past. We've been able to do that in the past, but right now, and I don't know, Doug, what the number currently is, when we talked, a week ago or so, the number of pre-K applications, we had 62, right? I don't know where that sits today. 67, okay. You know, so, and we can accommodate 4 times 18, 72, right? So, we'll want to try to do that more quickly than we were able to in the past. Because again, even now, you know, I get a little shaky, because when I was in the building, I wanted to get out as soon as I could and get those positions filled. But obviously, we need to make sure our budget passes and we can move forward.
I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have to scramble to find somebody who's had all of it.
Well, yeah.
It'd be nice to.
Yeah, and with that said though, go ahead.
Last year too, we got, a lot of late enrollments.
Well, and that's the thing I was gonna say. Some of that's gonna be unavoidable, right? But if we know now that the number is high enough where we could really have another section, we should add it now, knowing we might need to come back to you later and say we need another one. But very rarely do we drop in the, you know, drastically anyway in the summertime. Usually we'll have, just a matter of how much.
Yeah, I think, Emily's suggestion, we're already running tight, that 3 more enrollments is gonna push us to a level that we're.
Yeah, let's just do it.
Gonna do it, right?
Yeah, and I agree to that. That's exactly the conversation that we were having.
I mean, if we budget for it and we end up doing 75, it means no class size. Everybody makes it back to.
All the babies I saw a couple weeks ago in the wrestling tournament, that was an indicator. I'm telling you, it's coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you missed one, it's on the cover.
Not enough to have another one though.
I just verified, by the way, we're at 70.
What's that?
I just verified, we're at 70.
We're at 70,
And
okay.
the closing for that, by the way, is May 1.
Yeah, we've gotta wait.
We want that number to wait, so if we go to the lottery, we're ready after the budget, if budget's approved, and that's what we've always been going to the lottery. And
That's gonna be one that you're gonna have to bring before the board as a recommendation.
Yes.
So we were running sections of pre-K that weren't funded.
That's
So we were operating those out of general operating, and that was, that is an ask of our tax base. And so if you're looking at opening it with smaller enrollments, because they're so close versus the lottery, I think the board should weigh in on
Absolutely.
whatever the administrative recommendation is as it relates. We moved pretty quickly. I think we started with a couple, and then we were adding them before they were actually funded.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we had at least 1 or 2 years where we were funding 3 out of the 4. Now we have 3 of the 4 funded. Hopefully, like I mentioned, we'll be able to get that 4th one funded and the 5th one if we're able to add it, right? So we're in a good spot. It gives our kids a great head start. Yeah, no doubt.
It's just tough though if you end up in a position where you don't have the fiscal stability that you have, and you're looking to do cuts. And that's one of the areas that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Or you cut it to where it's a half-day program or something like that, and also.
Yeah, we remember when we had those conversations before, there was not a person who who wanted a half-day program, you know?
So, looking at enrollment then, obviously, it looks like we have a very good pool of pre-K candidates or what have you. Our kindergarten numbers look healthy, like we're not looking to reduce sections or anything, right? If our influx of pre-K is coming in.
Yeah, no, the questions that we look at the current enrollment, we look at where they'll be next year, and we say, how many sections do we currently have at that grade level? Is it a shift, meaning, does a teacher from the elementary school need to go to the intermediate school because those, or do we need to add positions? So we jockey in addition to adding positions when we need to. Anything else? It's a good problem to have, yes. Yep, no doubt. All right, thanks, Lynn. Appreciate it. Josh, shut that down. Thank you. You got it?
We'll move us right into new business. If I could please have a motion to approve the warrants and claims auditor's report.
So moved. Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? If I could have a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Have an investment summary and a budget status report. If I could please have a motion to accept the reports from the Committee on Preschool Special Education. So moved. Questions or comments on this report? All those in favor?
I would give it.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion to accept the reports from the Committee on Special Education. So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? If I could please have a motion to approve the donation. Questions or comments?
They're like correspondence back.
Yep. Yeah, we think, yep.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstention?
Oh, yeah.
There are none signed up wishing to be heard this evening. Is there anyone in the gallery that would like to? If I could have a motion to approve personnel.
Second.
Questions or comments regarding personnel?
Say that again?
A lot of years.
Absolutely. Yep.
Additional comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? If I could have, moving on to informational items, superintendent?
We are, and we have a couple for you. First, we got fundraising updates. The Junior High Student Council will be doing a food drive to benefit home and food pantry. We have a couple of dances I'm happy to report will be scheduled for Junior High Science Club and the high school student government later this spring. Secondly, another good bit of information. The OCM BOCES annual meeting will be once again in person. It's going to be held at the main campus in Liverpool on April 6th, beginning at 6. If you would like to go, please let Kelly know by the end of the week. If that works for you. I'm going to be going up. I would love some company. And if there's any interest in going and carpooling, you can work that out at a later time.
I'll be there as well.
Wonderful. There is some big celebration for you. I'm being told anyway.
I heard it was some kind of harassment, actually.
Well, that's usually what how it plays itself out, yeah.
Either way.
But it'll still be nice. Mhm.
And I need a little help. Were there board committee reports?
Well, we did have a budget finance meeting. I guess I would ask those committee members, is there anything you want to add from our discussion?
All the presentation.
Okay.
I hate to say it out loud, this one has been fairly painless so far.
So far, not got it. Yes, other district committee reports. I wanted Mr. Ebner to give you some feedback that he received from our staff development day as part of our professional learning committee.
Yeah, before I do a brief summary.
I would love to.
We had a ILC meeting rescheduled for March 15th, and I kind of want to go over just briefly the topic of that meeting. What we did is the folks indulged me a little bit to go through the curriculum audit, recommendations 1 through 5 that dealt with specifically the curriculum writing process. With recommendation 1, common definition of curriculum. Recommendation 2, creating a 4-year cycle. Recommendation 3, creating a curriculum template or using, coming together on a curriculum template. 4, using that said template to align our curriculum both horizontally and vertically. And recommendation 5, using that template to drive our professional learning. So there's a tie into what teachers are doing in the classroom and what they're learning to do better in the classroom and more efficiently, using the template as our guide. So we talked about that. And I think we're in a really good place. And that's one thing I want for the board to know, that there's been a tremendous, over the years, a tremendous amount of curriculum work done in this district under people that sat in my position years prior. And that's been great work. And what this process with the curriculum audit is going to allow us to do with these recommendations is to build off of that work. Not change the work, but build off of what's already been done. There's a great spine in place. And that's the credit to, the district administration, the teachers, and my predecessors, of course, leading that charge. So we have a great spot to start in, to continue this work. Curriculum work, as many of you know, is never done. Hence the 4-year cycle. Dr. Mack said, every 4 years, a content area should have its day in the sun to review and to look at and to analyze the curriculum both at grade level and between the grade levels. That's one thing that we're going to be doing moving forward, is having those articulation conversations across the grade levels. We have great coordination, great communication, as Doug highlighted, and the teachers highlighted with our collaboration time. There's great coordination at grade level. It's now how is 4th grade and 5th grade and 3rd grade aligned, and so on and so forth, and finding time for teachers across grade levels to meet. We'll talk about the 4 critical questions that Mr. Preschool was talking about. Those 4 critical questions of the PLC at work model is a function of curriculum. The first question, what should students know and be able to do? That's dictated by curriculum and what the teachers are writing. So I thought it was a productive meeting, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say that we have a great backbone and spine of our curriculum across the district. So
Devin, as you spend some time looking at curriculum, do you find that there is some good alignment, that there's a little bit of uniformity?
yeah, I truly believe there is a little uniformity. Actually, there's a lot of uniformity, but it's the heart of the matter to me. It comes down to conversations. It's teachers being aware of the continuity, what the expectations are above and below. So it's not. I don't think it was done with. There was some intentionality, but it's the opportunity. When can teachers get together? Time is precious. Time is of the essence. When you're building a master schedule, building time at grade level is a little less complicated than building time between grade levels. So it's going to be the conversations that it's done on purpose and it's done with intention.
And I think, you hit it on the head, that the curriculum work never ends. So that probably means we have to allow for some flexibility there at template. And
Absolutely.
templating also makes some changes.
Yeah.
So that 4-year cycle, we as a board could anticipate that the template structure of how it's written.
Yep.
could look different.
Yeah, and that's a point I tried to drive home with ILC, is trying to, when we use the word curriculum, people think of different things. We all have a different definition of that term, and my goal was to really get home that curriculum is not something you buy. It's something teachers in the whole central school district get together and write and agree upon. That's curriculum. What we buy are curricular resources and programs to help implement the I didn't get a lot of pushback on that. I think people appreciated that we can have a common word, because we have a lot of words in public education. But I want to be clear that we understand what the curriculum is. It's a written plan by teachers, for teachers. And to me, that's the key point, is that the teachers write it. That's the most important piece. So any questions about the ILC meeting? Okay, thank you. So moving on to our staff development day this past Monday, yesterday, seems like it just ended. But just briefly, we had, as I went over the agenda of the last board meeting, but Jen Rafferty came and certainly knocked it out of the park. I mean, I personally, I can't speak for anybody else but myself. I've tried before and failed miserably to speak for other people, but I learned a ton. Things you don't think about on a regular basis, and how we, sometimes we allow people kind of live rent-free in our brain. Don't do that anymore. We are in control of our time, and we're in control of our emotions. And it's okay to tell people no. It's okay to tell people that, I'm taking on way too much right now. Among other things, her sense of humor, her presentation style were outstanding. She's definitely great at her craft, and I'd love to keep her connected with our district moving forward. And her children go to our district, so she has buy-in, and she understands what Blue Pride is. I think that's important, connect with an outside person or agency, is that they help us. Then we went right into the faculty meetings, and the focus was the SEL work, our strategic plan. Our principals, and Chris and Jenny Guy stepped in to facilitate our building meetings, and some great working conversations came out of that. Then we had 2 45-minute sessions. I went over the roster, or the offerings there, and people loved them. People had a great time. Mr. Church said he loved playing table tennis. I got a lot of positive feedback from people attending other sessions other than the one I put on, and it was great. And then we had lunch, and then we had the building competitions, and I'm happy to report that the junior high destroyed the competition. So we had an hour-long trivia game where teachers sat with their building, and you could work as a group within your school, but there was about 50-55 trivia questions. We had a company coming from Syracuse, and the junior high just did an outstanding job. People were having a lot of fun with the trivia, a lot of things that harken back to the 80s. So it was a great time had by all.
One of the things, though, that Jeff's not telling you, is the majority of the planning committee that shows all the activities.
Oh, Mr. Turner.
Mr. Turner. They definitely stacked the deck.
There's no home cooking there, Tom, if that's what you're suggesting.
They learned from you, Tom. They learned from you.
So, yes, the junior high won the trivia contest. We moved on to a district-wide game of shipwreck, and I want to thank Pete Agard for doing a district-wide. It was hilarious. The junior high did win, going away there. And then we ended our day with the volleyball competitions where the buildings played each other. We played about 2 15-minute games. We had a consolation game and a championship game. And again, the junior high destroyed the competition. So, destroys a strong word. The first game was 25-8. I don't know how to get it right.
I didn't realize before yesterday that we had 3 or 4 7-footers that worked at the junior high school.
Volleyball pros.
Yeah, I don't know where they came from, but they
I'm not saying they practiced. I think they were well coordinated.
And one day,
But of note, I just want to take the opportunity to read you some of the responses that I received, and Tom was on a couple of these as well, but I think this hits to the point that it was a day well spent. So please indulge me here for just a moment. This is from faculty and staff. Thanks for the organization and support of today's staff development opportunities. It was so nice to have fun and laugh together at the end of the day. We felt like it was old days, like old times again. I had so much fun today. I just wanted to thank you for a much needed day. I'll be honest, reading the choices for today stressed me out initially, but this was probably the best staff day we've had in a long time. We had so much fun, laughed a lot, got to talk to people we either haven't talked to in a long time or wouldn't have talked to normally. We all needed that more than many of us really knew. The laughter, smiles, jokes, team building activities, etc. that happened today definitely makes for a happy and appreciative staff. Thanks for the great day today. It was really nice to laugh and have some friendly competition. It was really a good day. I will admit that I was a bit skeptical. That's a common theme. at first and thought about how I could use the day to get my work done, but I'm so glad that I did every activity that I did. It was enjoyable, fun, relaxing. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. I'm retiring from Homer at the close of this school year. Yesterday was the best day I've ever experienced. The guest speaker was excellent. The choices for activities and unity building fun games at the end of the day were fabulous. I've not seen that much joy and laughter for the entire staff in a very long time. Bravo. The activities were well thought out, well planned, and they really did a nice building staff morale. It's just what we needed this year. Many people were unsure what to expect in the afternoon, but I think most were pleasantly surprised. I was amazed at the teamwork. And lastly, I love the day and the options that were provided for everyone. I think that this should become a yearly tradition for all March staff days for the afternoon to be team building activities. It was fun to see so many people involved and having such an amazing time. It felt wonderful. I appreciate all that you and the committee did to put together such an awesome day. It was fun to hear all the comments from everyone to say how much they enjoyed the day. Thanks again for making my last staff development day a memorable one. I think this just goes to show you that, you know, to bring back the elementary presentation, that Blue Pride is the real deal. I've been here for 8 months, and this stuff brings me to tears that teachers enjoyed themselves and what they needed, and staff enjoyed themselves, and it was a team effort. You know, I always say teamwork makes the dream work. So many people were involved in the planning of this day. I sent a thank you out this morning to everybody, and it's just a great day. And moving on, you know, people were still walking on cloud nine today. I was at the admitted school for some time, talked to some teachers, and they just kind of felt refreshed. Even though we had a little shortage of subs today and some craziness, but people felt yesterday was well. Any? No.
I, you know, in having conversations with people that I know, before the staff development day, there was a lot of grumbling and, I just need this time to get my work done, and I didn't say anything, so I'm thinking to myself, sometimes it's like, you know, the parenting the child, sometimes you don't really realize what's best for you right now until you've experienced it, and you really just need to put your work aside for a minute, take a break, and have some fun. And sure enough, at the end of the day, it was like, wow, I was completely wrong. That was awesome. And I can right along with the sentiments that you shared. It was like a little bit of a weight that lifted off their shoulder for the afternoon. And really,
It's exactly what we have been talking about as a board, that they're terrible about putting themselves first or taking care of themselves. Right, so of course the first thought is, I have so many other things I need to get done, versus taking this minute to laugh, right? Maybe put myself out there in a way that I normally wouldn't, but we had talked about that as a board, that it's just something teachers won't allow themselves to do, right? I just have too many people to take care of. So, yeah, that's fantastic, that's
I
fantastic.
hope it becomes a yearly tradition, or however else you can afford to do it.
And the commentary about March is horrific. It is a long month, and I just was looking at the calendar like, oh my gosh, we're just halfway. I'm not gonna make it, so, you know, somebody saying that this would be a great idea for our March superintendent day, it sounds on point to me, because we're struggling through yet another really long March.
The teacher did mention including skydiving next year. Make sure our insurance policy pays on it.
It really is funny though that they actually articulated that, right? I have too many other things to do. There's so much better way for me to spend this time getting my work done. Yeah. Because remember we talked about that they don't. And then, you know, that, we took that opportunity and wow, this was good. How good it felt. Congratulations, that's fantastic.
Like I said, it's a team effort. A lot of people were part of this, and it was just great to see people come together. And selfishly, it allowed me a chance to get to know other people that I haven't really met yet, or I met with a mask on, and I forgot who they were, and it was just a great afternoon, a great morning. And thanks to everyone for holding, the teachers that put on the session. They didn't have to do that. You know, they did something extra, and for not just for them, but for the colleagues. It shows you the love, care, and attention that they have now for children, for the people they work with too, so Blue Pride is real, no doubt.
Board member expert.
I had opportunity to go attend a parent meeting for our students on youth and government in Albany. But then my work schedule had me in Albany while they were there, so I got to see them on the Thursday nights as the leadership was there. So I actually stayed in the desert while they were there, and so could connect with some of our students. And see that it just happened to coincide that I was there that night.
Very cool.
So, our students did very well. They always represent themselves so well at the youth government. It's a great activity for our kids to get involved to experience what the government process is and how to engage in that. And it was just great to see them and see them all dressed professionally because they have to go dress business formal. And so they're there interacting in that way. It was well done.
I went and saw Frozen. If you missed it.
Pretty good,
yeah,
right?
You missed out.
Yeah.
That was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal. The talent that the junior high has. Sam Harper did a wonderful, just, the whole team. What an amazing performance. And I have to tell you, the most precious part probably was watching all the little girls dance in the audience when the main song came on. Just really great. Well done.
I saw Chuck singing too. You didn't, you probably didn't
He's
see
one of
it.
the ones rolling around.
Secret gallery. Don't even confuse. It's okay.
Let it go.
Upcoming events.
Yes, we continue music in our schools month. A lot of, again, excellent opportunities to see our kids in action. And we have April on there, and the cabaret is going to be back and better than ever, April 2nd. So a lot of great things going on. Have our kids showcasing their talents. Looking forward to all of those.
If I could have
So
one.
moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you, everybody.